let's see what's going on in the main field. It looks like we got Estevan Solis versus Colin Yates, and I believe that is a Eva Mare match.
That does indeed look like an Ava Mira match. Let's see which player ends up victorious in this one. I do believe this game is going to come down a lot to very, very good resource management, and it's also going to be a case of who can set up their promo board better. We see Esteban taking the first turn. He's getting his early game set up. He's already going into the red line. He's already pitched. We have a decent starting hand, it looks like, with what he's been pitching. That is the one good thing about a mirror match of this capacity. You get to breeze through the early game pretty quickly because we all know whose strategy is doing what since we're playing the same cards through the group.
Yep, we are coming in. One thing that is apparent in standard is we are coming into set 8 already, coming into the meta, as well as the Chrono Jet set. Well, it's not really a set more than like the trial deck or.
That's gonna be fun.
Yep. So we're coming in. Does look like he's going for an early game rush, coming in his Vanguard swing first.
Very interesting choice to have the Vanguard swing first. I don't generally disagree with it. It does make it rather risky, however, if his opponent checks a trigger, but the value proposition of getting the trigger first is pretty good.
Yep. For Esteban's turn, he did hit a defensive, so he is pretty much good to go. Goes in for the right and grabs his grade 1 and his swings Vanguard.
And Mr. Yates loses a critical trigger. That might be impactful with his trying to pass a few shield breaks later.
Here we go, going into the grade 2. It does look like Colin is the one that went second here, going and searching for another. I almost said world order, but that's not. That's research order. Man, the amount of orders that they are in Brand K.
It's always very interesting to see Vanguard's take on the spell card, and they have yet to disappoint with the mechanics they've introduced. Everything seems very much interactive beyond the degree we thought it would be.
Yep, here we go, coming in there, guarding for the no hit, doing all the effects to rear guard, and going in for the swing 2 damage with Obscurity grade 2, I believe, right?
I believe so.
And here
Esteban
we go.
takes it.
Gets the draw trigger and then damage
That's
in order.
interesting. Does look like he's trying to gain some resources for his swing turn on grade 3. Let's see how he does it.
And does look like Esteban is going into the grade 3. One thing that I do find kind of interesting is he currently only has 1 order.
He just grabbed a second, it looks like.
Is he a turn behind? You need 3. Oh, it looks like he's taking top 5, so I'm going to say that he has 3 orders. Or has it stacked right there. So checks top 5, ends up calling one of the goblins. May put something from his drop to the bottom of his deck. Now, what's really good about that order is that once you have 3 and hits the 3rd one or the 4th one, you can check top 5 and call Obscurity, and since Obscurity is called by a skill, he would gain that critical. So, if he was able to pull that off, he would have been able to have 2 crits, or 1 crit each on one Obscurity and the other, and be able to do a big push for his first grade 3 right. But
exactly.
it doesn't look like it.
But considering his current circumstances, it looks like he's trying to play out to the best of his abilities with the resources he has at hand. He might actually be preserving a few pieces to try and go for that play himself next turn. But
you mentioned preserving, and well, we see 2 Obscurities.
I said that right as he was putting it down on the board, which is the best part. But regardless, it does look like it's going to be a heavy push from Esteban going into Colin. He's trying to make sure that he eats up Colin's hand, trying to get as many resources away from him before he switches the turn back to him, and trying to make sure he loses whatever advantage he has gained in the early game.
So we do have an incorrect timer, guys. Currently, we haven't been able to place it up as of yet. But we... And here we go. Coming with a 2 crit on Obscurity, ends up guarding the attack, and coming with the last swing here. Currently they are still even. This is going to be a 23-31 for Colin. Decides to guard it with, I believe,
And pass back to Colin with a clean turn. Well,
And
let's see how
Colin is
Colin
going to
takes
play.
advantage of his order setup. It should be very interesting. Pitching the Sentinel order to right up to grade 3. Very, very interesting. That means his hand isn't in the best state, I would believe. Or it's a very, very high level play that we have yet to see the comeuppance of.
And here we go, playing the order, checking the top 5. No, I'm sorry. Counterblasting for Eva, checking the top 3.
And there's Ziab. Going straight into combat swing with the single order on Houston. Beautifully done by Colin. Well played use of his resources. It looks like Esteban's in a bit of a rough situation now that he's facing the inverse of the board he just had a turn ago. That's why you can't underestimate the ability of an EVA player.
You
That
can't
deck has so
underestimate the ability of an Eva player. But
The deck may
coming
seem
in, here we
easy
go,
on the
coming in to check,
surface.
pulling the heal trigger, healing 1 point of damage, going back to 2. That's going to be very big coming into the late game for taking it out. And
A
another
second heal.
But
He's
it
not
doesn't
going to be
look
able
like
to
it's
take
gonna get
advantage of the heal itself, but the power is a very welcome circumstance to be able to push through Esteban and get
He
him
is
closer
pushing
to
in,
the
giving all the effects to the critical trigger. Obscurity going in for 43 plus a boost of 13, 56 to Esteban. This one here taking his choices in. Maybe he has that PG, or he's going to commit more from here.
Oh, Esteban takes it. And that is game
And
one.
that is
ladies
it.
and
Going to 6 damage, and that is going to be game 1 for round 1 of I almost said premium.
For round 1 of Overdress.
Yes.
Very interesting turn of events. Very well played by Colin, being able to turn around the lead that Esteban was trying to produce and cracking back at him with his own board state for all intents and purposes while getting the extra attack in thanks to his ride line setup.
So coming in, Esteban is going to end up going first once more. And we've already seen what that effect has on him, but is he able to pull it back in? It all depends, honestly, on the order. When that third order gets played, does he hit the obstacle? Does he get a slightly higher of a push? And that's mostly the deciding factor of all things considered. I mean, we didn't see in this game, we saw mostly obstacle needs, but, coming in, the Combine Rusher has a big effect on the grade 2 game if it comes in early.
Exactly. I do believe it's going to be an interesting game going into game 2 now because Esteban might be incentivized to try and deny resources from Colin as best he can to prevent the same setup coming about. It's also hard in the mirror match when you're playing Eva versus Eva because you do know the lines your opponent is trying to complete, and if you miss your orders and you see them hit theirs, you do feel a bit in your stomach kind of well up.
Yep, fully agreed. Going into this weekend, he's going to have a good chunk of different matchups. I mean, for today, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of more Chrono Jet coming in. So it's really good to see other meta-defying decks like Eva, Uford, and Overlord within these next few rounds. I do think we're also going to see some Lutetia. I was looking around, and that is also available because they have a very solid rush in the beginning half of the game.
Absolutely. I dread to see the Chrono Jet mirror match play out on stream, but that's going to be a fun circumstance to behold.
It almost feels like tomorrow. Early premium.
It's going to be a fun circumstance to witness, especially with the coming rise of the deck and how many new players and new faces we see piloting it today. We see Colin going into his ride line, searching his order without any hiccups, headaches, or whatsoever. So Esteban is fast on track to being behind if he doesn't hit soon.
Yep. Usually, a lot of the early game Eva scenarios are just depending on what is in your hand. If you don't have another very long,
Colin going for the solo Vanguard swing. He's not going to rush him like last game.
Nope, but it does look like this one took the hit and is going to be out 1 damage.
Unlike last game, Esteban is able to see his order set up, and he's going to be ahead of Colin, unlike previous scenario. But It all depends on if he can hit his odds, because if he cannot, it's going to be a rough early game rush for him.
So guys, you may be hearing the door closed in the background. We are very close to the entrance of the venue. Hopefully we do get that resolved during the next round, but do apologies on the first round noise.
You see trigger. Going into Colin's turn, he pitches, I believe, actually missed that. Can barely tell.
Here we go, getting the second order. Proceeding just for swing, going for rear guard here. He is denying the counter blast for Estevan to have access to. And what is going to be very interesting here is that he can't countercharge until battle phase. So yes, he may still be able to get the obstacle if he calls a roll line to the field, but just the access that he has is very limited. He's unable to add more cards to hand. So this is a very solid strategy coming on the Colin side, trying to limit the amount of cards that he's using in hand, and he does know that he's going to be committing a board.
But Estevan does pull the third order into play, checking his top 5.
Yep, and there we go, calling the front row attacking obstacle. Sadly enough, there is no front row to attack. But we are going to have solid numbers in order to guard. That seems going to still be a 10K intercept, as well as it's fully restricted from being retired by his opponent's cards. But I don't think that's going to be an option for Colin to be able to retire.
Very solid play by Esteban. It's very interesting to see how the deck performs under a resource denial like that, but it doesn't look like it's worked out in Colin's favor considering the board state he's been able to establish.
Well, it does look like he's coming in, pulling the heel trigger, going back to 2 cards, and passing it over. Here we go, finally going into his great return. Let's see what he decides to discard. Does look like he is contemplating different lines of play here, and he does go with the discard of the obstacle, going into Eva and coming in with the same order. Let's see what he gets for the top 5, but does he hit the obstacle? That doesn't look
does not look like
solid
it's
as you want it to.
It looks like a very rough decision for Colin.
And he does decide to send it all back to them.
Very unfortunate circumstance for Mr. Yates. It is not the usual likelihood that that occurs, but when it does, you do feel it. And he does not feel good as an EVA player.
Alright, here we go. Coming in for combats, checking top 3, and what does he decide to add to hand? Decide his choices, and
we did see Sunspice come off the top of that as he was looking through it. I do not know what his choice is exactly. Oh.
it is the depend card because we can't see it. But he ends up adding and calling another Combine Rusher to the field and calling a Bubble Mine for the previous Combine Rusher. Here we are going for a 28K swing to the Vanguard. There we go, guarding for exactly 28 and the 5K guard. Putting Bubble Mine through, so counter-charging 1 and going with the Evo swing 2 once again. Counter blast.
Very interesting choice from Estevan to guard that, knowing he's being denied resources, but at the same time, considering the pressure that Colin has to put on board to catch up, I think he knows he can take advantage of Colin being behind and having to swing a few times extra at the Vanguard to maintain his pressure on the board.
And here we go, obviously coming on board, becoming a 23K base, having a crit, giving the crit to Viva, power to the critical obstacle, taking 2 points of damage here. Can't determine, but he did hit 1 trigger and another trigger. Now we're going in for 3 damage. No, wait, not 3 damage, 2 damage.
Very rough decision from Estevan. His hand is starting to shape up a little low, so he might be forced to sacrifice a few rear guards here.
Yep, this is a 33K attack. Esteban's Eva is already 23, so the double intercept would be able to guard the attack. And here we go, intercepting for 33 and 43.
Very difficult choice that needed to be made by Estevan. I can only imagine that this condition of his hand and the lines
That
of play
last
he had
attack
considered.
was 20K, so it was not a hit enough to get past 23, so turn is passed.
As we pass back to Esteban's turn, let's see if he has the ability to recover from such a devastating turn of events.
devastating.
I don't know. He looks a little behind to me, my friend.
All right, here we go. Placing next order, checking top 5. Hopefully he hits the cards he needs to proceed. We are looking for an obstacle to call on board. Does he get it? Survey says, and there he is, getting the 23K base. Did he persona this turn?
He did not persona this turn.
So 23K base obstacle with a critical because it was placed by a card's ability. That is going to be a nice push coming in here because Colin hasn't seen a heal as of yet after giving Estevan 2-3 damage. So it's honestly looking like he may have to take one obstacle to get it or guard both of them.
We have Estevan taking advantage of it. Always interesting to see the ability of this deck to just recover from nothing. It always has so many resources to churn through, and it has so much reliability in its rear guards, and it has so much recyclability with its abilities that it really is a force to contend with, regardless of the new pieces in the format. Very solid play by Estevan, re-establishing his board state, trying to take back control of the game.
And here we go, Colin, the second obstacle, both having criticals. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to deal with over here. It does look like he did put the card into soul for... Sorry. It does look like he rested 3 units for his grade 3 order, so the Vanguard is swinging for 23K. And comes in pulling the draw trigger, deciding which obstacle to give power to, decides to buff up the one without a booster, and then going in for the second check, another E-buff. So we do know Persona Right is going to be available next turn.
Colin deciding to take the 1 damage after seeing that trigger. After seeing the triggers pulled, he is hopefully going to be able to survive this swing.
Yep, it does look like he is considering taking one of the obstacle hits because he is pursuing 2-3 damage.
Those numbers are always scary to see across from you on the table, especially when they're backed up naturally by a critical. It is very hard to deal with. Keep in mind, this one obstacle does have an extra 10k for that trigger check, and he takes the damage.
Yep, he does decide to go 2-5 damage and begin his turn.
We see a Persona Ride. We do see a Persona Ride from Mr. Yates.
It does look like he is going for a Persona Ride and having 4 orders already available. It doesn't look like he had the other grade 3 order, but we'll see what happens coming in. So he did play the order, so he could counterblast 1 and call the Combine Rusher, but it does look like he is deciding on that fact.
So we're getting some clarification from the judge on Persona Running that you do have to place the card on top of your Vanguard. You can't just put it in the soul and keep the shiny one.
But you got to keep the shiny.
It's not Bushiroad sanctioned.
So you go, Climb Busting 1, calling the Combine Rusher to the rear guard circle. Let's see if he uses anything. He does decide to counterblast 1 for Evil Skill to check top 5, add a card to hand. And we did get a little look at that, but since we're very close to the stream table, we can't mention what he just added to his hand.
It is a rather spicy pickup for Colin. It does help his chances in this game of pulling back ahead.
And here we go, coming in. So there is one issue currently with the stream setup. We do have a lot of glare coming into that back row here. And here we go, coming in swing with the Combine Rusher. He did Persona Ride swing, so this is going to be a 30k swing coming to the Vanguard. Those ladies gives the draw trigger, putting it at 23, then intercepting for the 33k. Here we go, coming in with Eva, does look like he rested, so got +5, not only from the order skill, but from her own skill, so she is swinging for a 33k attack as well. And here we go, Colin which is going to be a 30k swing, plus whatever the boost is.
Looks like a very much solid inverse of the last turn that Colin himself had to deal with. Now we'll see if Estevan has the gas to provide his protection. If not, it looks like this game might be over as it started the last one.
Estevan is pushing at the 3 damage mark.
We see an over trigger come down from Estevan to
Here we
guard.
go, coming in, getting the Elementaria and the Obscurity to his hand. Weirdly enough, I thought he had the Elementaria with...
I thought so as well. Estevan forced to pitch several from the to
Looks like he decided to go rear guard, trying to limit his resources for the following turn. It does look like Esteban's not going to be able to heal anything, so he's limiting the amount of triggers they're going to have access to, and does only have that 1 counter blast. Esteban does only have 3 orders as of currently, so it doesn't look like he's able to countercharge with the order skill, but it does look like he solved that issue very quickly.
It looks like he was able to draw it off the Persona ride to get to his 4th order, and it is going to be very interesting to see how he recovers from that last turn. Esteban still very handedly in the lead, I would like to think, especially considering the resources he still has in hand, since he didn't drop that much to guard on the last turn.
There you go, Esteban displaying the counter blast, looking at the top 3, deciding what to add to him.
Esteban countercharging.
Here you go, calling the off speed from him, and another grade 2 off speed with the 13k booster. It does look like he is playing the soul to draw an additional card to his hand. And let's see if he decides to go to Battle Fates. If he is going to go to Battle Fates, I do believe that he's going to go with the grade 2 swing off speed first, before calling off speed from either his hand or deck. Here we go, coming in. Did he Persona register? I believe so, because he had it for last turn. Yeah. So we do look at a 25k swing, gives him the 50k guard, spending the skill for Eva, and probably the speed from his hand. Since he didn't grab from deck, he doesn't have to shuffle, so the deck stays where it's at.
And then overtrigger coming from Colin as well for guard. Both players now without overtrigger.
Looks like guns in with the critical. Giving it to the option that doesn't have a crit, so we do have 2 damage on both sides.
Very
Both
challenging
attacks, very
problems for
weak.
Colin to deal with.
So this one is going to be coming in, going in the Elementaria. And it does look like he is picking up one of his obstacles. And here we go, coming to intercept, and that's 53k guard for 33, 40, 51, yeah. That wasn't enough to grab the attack.
Well, it was a very solid play by Colin. He was able to hold his resources and live through such a heavy swing turn. But can he turn the game over now?
We did get a small peek at Esteban's hand, which is going to be kind of interesting to take further. It does look like he's going in, playing another order. He does have the grade 2 order on the board, but there's not much use for it. He doesn't have access to that anything because obscurities are non-chosen.
His last counter blast, Colin goes in for Ava skill. Let's see what he grabs.
Actually, I think he was able to choose obscurity because he no longer has the grade 1 order on the field.
You're correct. Very interesting. Able to counter charge here. And grabbing back our boy. Very, very nice play by Colin.
Coming in for 33. Starts with Pitcher from earlier, 28-38. Now we go in for the swing. It doesn't look like he activated the order to give another 5K to Eva, but it is still a 28K swing.
Is he failing to find?
He is just getting that shuffle in because he has seen the bottom half of the deck, so he rather just search and fail that search. Going for the first check, second check. Are both of those PGs?
It does look to me like both of those were indeed PGs. It's going to be very rough for Esteban to come back with that.
Estevan does have to decide if he's going to be taking one of these swings, and as well, which one. Does it, he's going for the Elementaria. Grabbing in some ideas from Colin's side, and here we go with the final. He's decided, does he swing or not?
He does have the Bulbo Mine behind the arm, but he chooses to not swing and deny Esteban more resources.
Yep, does it there. Esteban is at 3 cards hand. Does have the percent right. Draws back to 3. He is looking for an order because he is currently, I believe, at 3 orders.
He is currently at 3.
Yep, so he doesn't have access to counter.
There's his 4th, right as we were talking about.
He always has it. He always has it. You can't doubt these evil players, I tell you.
Every time you think they run out, they always dig that one blue card deeper. They always find that one. Esteban digging in the top 5 here. Solid choice all around. Gives him Colin gives him more pressure for the swing board, but can he recycle his odds? Is the real question.
See, Colin did have a rough choice last turn. He had to decide if he was going to be giving. He was just trying to decide if he does give him the 1 damage, but the only issue is that if he does swing, he gets Boba, he does counter charge, but then he does get that 1 damage. So it was a little bit of a rough decision. Let's see if it ends up working out, because it does look like he has expended all his counter dice. So he will need to be able to play an order from hand in order to counter charge 1 and just be able to have access to doing his turn.
Yeah, that is a very difficult decision to make from Colin's perspective, but if he already did have the order in hand, which we're not sure if he does, it's going to be very interesting to see how he turns it back around. The big issue being that when you restrict your counterblast so much, it does make it kind of hard to recycle your board state should your opponent dismantle it.
And here we go, resting, giving 5 to Eva. Oh. 18.
We guard that with a temptation.
Paying Eva skill. Searching deck for an obstacle. And there it
That's
is.
the last copy of Esteban's deck as well. Very, very well played by Esteban. Good resource management there. Not burning every single copy out of the deck. Esteban really having to think hard about where he places the power finisher. And he goes for the Vanguard. Does he get the second? He does not. Very, very sad to see. We have the first perfect guard and the second. Colin's hand is empty, but he is alive.
And he gets the order.
Off the rip, our boy gets the order. This
Going
is
for top
very,
5 design, what to call it.
very
Doesn't look like
solid
there's
swing
much
back from
choices.
Colin. It is, however, do or die time for Mr. Yates. If he does not kill Esteban on this turn, he will have to go to game 3.
Yep. But what is kind of going to be interesting here, he is going to be able to get that counter charge coming in. So countercharging one. And adding an obstacle from his drop to his hand. He's saying if he's going to be calling it out, I think there's no harm in it at this point. But he does need to be able to call from his deck or drop in order to have a good push for that turn. So it's going to be a rough decision. He most likely probably doesn't have another grade 3 obstacle in the deck.
As nice as a top deck that order was, I don't think it will end up being enough for Mr. Yates here. Estevan has a few too many resources. He has too much in hand and a few too many cards on board. I don't know if he's going to be able to push the game here.
Yep. It does look like we kind of have to hope that he does have an OCC back in deck. Goes in rest straight, giving 5k to Eva. He goes in, takes the damage. And there you go, Colin, the great one. Obviously, be able to attack the front row with that attack.
Now, will that be enough is the real question here. It may come down to
Deck
whether or
is
not
getting
Colin
very thin. We have been
grabs his
seeing some of
triggers.
the top 5, so we could be expecting some really good triggers coming in from the top of the deck. And here we go, coming in with the BG, discarding the draw trigger. Sorry, first check, critical trigger. Deciding where that's going to be going, it does look like he is currently at 5, so we're going to go all in. Did he go all in?
He, I believe, put it on the option with the collar.
Yeah, because he PG.
You have 10 minutes left in the round.
As you may have heard from our head judge, Peter, that is the 10-minute warning for the round, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep, here we go, attacking the front row. And I do believe he has the critical as well.
Does Estevan have?
Here we
He
go, coming
does
in the
have the
front row.
last perfect
Nice
guard
PG.
needed.
Am I crazy? That's Bubble Mine in the background, right?
That is indeed Bobolmine. Colin hoping on a Hail Mary here, trying to hit maybe a heal trigger on 6, but I don't know how he gets out of this current situation.
Yep.
Esteban is an order short from being able to go full Gahongos with his units, but I don't believe that's going to be too necessary. He looks like he should be able
What's
to.
kind of interesting of the past turn, though, it was that he did have only one counterblast in hand. He hadn't counterblast as of yet to check the top 4, check the top 3 for whatever card, and then call it from the field. And then he would have been able to countercharge with the Bubble Mine if he swung it that counter first. But he proceeded to hold the obstacle. He didn't get a critical as of yet, and then proceeded to call. I feel like there was a missed opportunity there, but I can't really say for sure.
I tend to agree, especially considering his overall play. As good as his decision making has been, I believe holding on to that bubble line for so long might end up having been cost him this game.
No trigger. Heal trigger?
Yep, that is indeed a heal trigger for Esteban. That is game 2. It is going to Esteban for game 2. We're going to hit a game 3, and that's going to be the deciding factor for us as we have less than 10 minutes left in the round. Let's see how this one pieces out.
Yep, there's going to be less than 10 minutes left in the round. We do have Colin at 1, as well as Esteban at 1, holding the front for both sides. It is going to be an even split right down the middle on who's going to end up taking it. What is going to be kind of interesting is you can't be missing a beat here.
You cannot afford to slip up a single play. This is a game of resource management, as I said before, and it is very much coming down to the wire to who's going to be able to edge out the advantage over the other. It keeps going back and forth during these games, but the biggest thing I've noticed so far is players managing their counterblast correctly in this matchup more than anything. Being able to abuse and use Eva's skill continuously throughout the matchup, make sure you have the resources to spend when your opponent takes a very large swing turn against you, especially in the mirror match. And for those of you in the stream just joining us, there are 7 minutes on the clock. Our timer is incorrect as we were not able to update it before the round started, but we are going to see them going into game 3. And it looks like Esteban gets the choice of going first.
It does look like this one has gone first. All 3 rounds today. Or all 3 games for the
All
round 1.
3 games, this man is taking the first play. That feels very bad for Colin's perspective. The extra draw is nice, but being able to set up those orders really matters in this matchup. As we conclude with the mulligan, we'll see how this game progresses. I wonder if Colin is going to bring back that early game rush he had used in game 1 to get that deciding factor going for him. Does seem to have been somewhat helpful in his one victory in the match so far.
Yeah, but it does look like they are keeping it very simple here. They want to keep as many resources at hand as possible because that is going to be a small deciding factor. We have that door opening constantly.
Whew. That was an angry slap. Might have to prop that thing open at this point.
Can you tell whose turn it is? Because they're all shuffling.
This isn't Yu-Gi-Oh! What's going on here? Proceeding to start his turn with Estevan still shuffling from the end search of his. We are going to see Colin swing with just the Vanguard. He's not going to go for an early game rush. Checking an order is going to be very useful for his setup.
And that's why hitting the draw trigger, building that hand much earlier than expected.
As always, it's very fun to see how many players come out with their spicy bling, as many fans of this game have always attested to. The shinier the better.
Shinier the better. But guys, do keep in mind we are going to be running streams for today and tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a premium tournament PS5 on Champion.
And the most interesting thing about tomorrow when it comes to the PS5 tournament for premium, it is no over trigger premium. So we are not going to have to worry about that. And we see a critical trigger defensively for Colin here.
Getting that plus 10k, try to limit the amount of rush that he does receive, and it is paying off.
Very lucky strike by Colin there.
Hey, anything can happen in a game of card fight bang.
Anything can happen in card fight. Card fight is the best after. Does he go for the rush in response to Estevan's is the real question. He does. Doubling down, in fact, bringing out the on the second column.
If it does look like he's going for the full grade 2 rush here, trying to put as much pressure as possible on Estevan early so he doesn't have to worry about it.
If Estevan does hit the trigger, he's at least able to swing at the rear. Does Estevan protect it, however, is the question.
The Combine Rusher is just a ploy. Get it off the field. We know. We know. He comes back no matter what. He's a maple. But Dule Estevan is going to be at 2 damage. Colin currently still at 1. And we are getting into Esteban's turn. He does get into his grade 3. Has the grade 3 order. Checking the top 5. And does he hit the obstacle? Does look like there's a lot of thinking, so we're going to assume the obstacle wasn't hit, and it was 5 triggers.
I'd like to assume it was all Pokemon cards, and he's been lying the whole time. As I continue to call Absu Obstagoon, with the horror of Pokemon still stuck in my brain. Having 2 counterblasts going into your first grade 3 turn is also very nice for Estevan. It gives him a few resources to play with, and it depends on how he spends them all. Because that does mean Colin, with his already established board, will be able to take a swing back on his grade 3. We are nearing the end of the round, however.
to Estevan's grade 3 turn. He is going in with the Eastern. He decides to call the grade 2 obstacle. Because he does call at the beginning of his Vanguard swing, Colin is aware he's going to lose his rear guard, so might as well intercept.
Over trigger from Estevan. Passing through, dealing a solid 2 damage. Moving the over trigger, drawing a card. Estevan
So you gave
is
all the effects to the Vanguard, so it doesn't look like the Vanguards have the 100 million, but they did gain plus whatever their current power is. Now, Obskadi, do keep in mind, says it gains 5k or 10k, depending on which one it is, when they swing. So they don't have that number already. So currently, that is going to be a 10k swing double, 20, 25k going into the Vanguard.
with a bonus critical because of the double critical from the over trigger as well.
Yep, but it is still guardable. He did hit a trigger, so he's going to decide to PG on that attack.
Very, very exciting.
And guards
And
with the
calling
over.
guards with his over trigger. How devastating.
All right, here we go. Going into Colin's turn, we are going to be a little bit off commentary currently because of some technical issues. We will be returning shortly. And
Freeze.
Ladies and gentlemen, it was time in the round. We are in 0, 1, 2, 3, or 10 minutes, whichever comes first. At the end of 0, 1, 2, 3, we're going to be counting life totals if a player has not been removed from the game due to lethality.
apologies for that, guys. I just need to get some clarification on the overtrigger that was pulled last turn. I was just double checking the numbers here because I was slightly confused on the guarding, but it does look like I was slightly off. Obskadi number 2, the grade 2 Obskadi, gains 5k continuously instead of the previous Obskadi who gets the 10k on swing. So because of that, that grade 2 was a 30k swing.
We see a double trigger intercept guard from Estevan, trying to maintain this lower life total as we go into turns.
There you go, Estevan going to 4.
We are now at 4 all.
This is tennis. One thing is going to be very interesting. Well, goes in forward. The top 5 does he hit the obstacle? The question today.
I do believe it is in there. I do believe I saw it. Or am I wrong? I do believe that might have been a Vobal Mine that he flipped on top instead. Interesting choice from Estevan. Not the most ideal.
It's the penguin, right? Yeah. I do believe the penguin was discarded in order to draw a card. I haven't seen a lot of. Oh no, I think it checks for an order from top of that.
The card doesn't really see a lot of play in Evil this I've noticed, but it's an interesting check.
Yes. I would say yes, you're correct. There is a lot of interesting choices here because I have not seen a Combine Rush on Esteban's side as of yet.
You're right, I have not seen it online.
Oh wait, I lied.
As we just see it now. It is the stream curse.
Yeah, we say something and it happens.
Absolutely. Thing hasn't happened as it's happening. Fantastic. We do see Estevan trying to create his push for the turn, trying to get Colin back up to leading in a higher life total so we can finish turns in his favor. Or at the very least, killing him outright.
Colin is kind of focused, deciding how he's going to proceed forward the game. Does look like he is being pushed into a corner from Estevan. Going into the very first swing, ends up being invited. Now Estevan swing 4. He does have rested rear guard, so I'm going to say this attack is 33 as well. Calling the offs to be 2 gain the critical,
And
which also
that
has
is
a booster.
devastating for Colin.
That call will be 41 as well as the other option column being 33.
These are some very fat numbers, and they are not very friendly towards Colin with his very small hand size.
Go for it, definitely taking 2 cards from him. He does decide to guard the attack since he needs to watch out for that critical trigger. Gets
And
the
there
critical.
is a crit.
Currently one option he does have the crit, does decide to give it out there, so 43-41 are the final numbers that we'll be seeing on these swings. He does decide to go with the lowest one first with the 41 with the critical. Colin is biting his choices here, does decide to PG the attack.
Does he
and
have
then
the
we
last perfect guard? He does
and
not.
Here we go, pulling the heel
Trigger! He goes and lives this one, ladies and gentlemen, but he does go to 5.
And then there goes the Elementaria, but, you know, we're just glad to be here.
Saving graces, we are alive.
Yep.
So
Gets
we
the Persona
do
right.
Persona
There we go.
ride.
Drawing an additional card has the
Does
counterblast
he
available.
have the 4th order, though, is the real question for Colin.
The question is mainly is just, is he going to be able to break through Esteban's hand? I can't really quite see. I do think there's like around 5 cards in Esteban's hand.
He
5 or
does
6.
hit the 4th order, but I do believe Esteban has at least 6 cards in hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7.
7?
Esteban does indeed have 7 cards in hand, so it's going to be very difficult for Colin to break through. We're almost in the last of turns here, ladies and gents. This is very, very interesting. Let's see if he's... And he does get the other off. Swinging, setting up, unboosted.
And here we go, going in for the 33K swing. Does look like he decides to take it.
And
Gets the
Esteban
trigger,
getting a defensive trigger.
becoming a 23K base. Now we got the Vanguard swing. Doesn't look like Colin rested any rear guards, or sorry, orders. So it does look like this is going to be a 28K attack.
Again, pardon the noise from the board. We will get that addressed by the second round, I believe. Esteban struggling to decide where to put that trigger. A second! He gets a heal and a critical trigger.
Both sides do have criticals on board. So going in for the 2 damage. It's lethal. What is he going to do?
Esteban forced to use a lot of hand advantage here as he goes into the last of turns on his team. Also closing in on the end of overtime, less than 2 minutes for the end of overtime. And it does look like our game is over.
It's time.
Oh, Estevan is at 6 damage.
Oh,
He
that's
was
what
not
they
able
said
to
take
guard the attack.
He was unable to guard the attack, and it does look like Colin Yates is taking it. That was a little bit rough of the game. You know, both sides trying to keep their resource. It's interesting because, you know, EVA doesn't really focus on keeping guardable resources more than it is to resurface the obstacles into their hand.